Hello and welcome to today's video, which is about how to avoid probate. I'm always glad to help people, but with this video, I am especially excited because this can help so many people to avoid costly mistakes when there's family money at stake. And so today I have attorney Rebecca Doan here, and she is a probate attorney and an estate planner. And I probably should have said that in reverse because estate planning can help you avoid probate. But she's here. I hit it off with her the first time we talked because we're very similar in the fact that we want to help people and serve people and help them to protect their families. And that's the common goal. And so she's here to help explain how to avoid probate. So Ms. Doan, if you would.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be doing this because this is kind of a public service announcement that everybody really in every state needs to know about. When you're, over 50% of all the people that die in the state of Florida die without any estate planning at all. And one day I was bored at my desk a number of years ago, and I started adding up the number of thousands of hours that the average person works in their life. And on the average, you work about 80,000 hours in your life. So that's a substantial amount of time, and the average person doesn't take the 2 or 3 hours that it would take to plan their estates when they die. So you're spending these 80,000 hours in your lifespan to accumulate some wealth. Take the extra hour or two just to make some plans so that it doesn't dissipate accidentally or inappropriately when you pass away. And one of the things that you should think about doing is doing an actual estate plan. And if you live in the state of Florida, part of that estate plan should include a revocable living trust. Now, hopefully you've heard of a revocable trust, right, Chip?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. So I have lots of clients that come in, or potential clients, and they'll bring me their documents and they'll say, look, Rebecca, I did a revocable trust, so I'm going to avoid probate. Because that's the way, by creating a revocable trust, that's one of the main ways in the state of Florida to avoid probate. So then I'll start asking the client, okay, your real estate, your home, did you place that in the revocable trust? And they'll say no. And I'll say, well, your bank account or that Schwab investment account, did you put that in your revocable trust? No. The attorney gave me this letter that said, congratulations, you've done a revocable trust. Now you need to put your assets into your trust. But clients don't know how to prepare a deed. That's why they call you, Chip. You know how to do that. Clients don't know how to necessarily make beneficiary designations done properly. Clients don't know how to do a assignment of a mortgage receivable. They don't know how to assign limited partnership interests or corporate stock powers. So a lot of times what I see is somebody's created a revocable trust, but they haven't funded it. So guess what happens if you have a revocable trust, but you haven't put any of your assets in it and you pass away? So what do you think happens?
It's not protected.
Well, and it goes through probate.
Right.
Yeah, because the only way you avoid probate is by putting those assets in your revocable trust before you pass away. In essence, it's a little bit like probating your estate before you die, because you make certain that the assets get placed in the trust. And then when you pass away, the successor trustee is the one that acts as if it's the probate judge and basically distributes the assets pursuant to the terms of the trust without having to involve the probate judge.
There was one case that I thought was very interesting. There's been several famous people like Michael Jackson and Steve Jobs that have had issues because they didn't have everything protected. And I forget which one it was, but they had actually taken property out of the revocable trust and done something with it, or they bought it after the fact and they didn't add it to the revocable trust. And so therefore it wasn't covered and it had to go through probate, and it was a big surprise to everybody. But it's important, like you were saying, to make sure that each and every asset that you want to pass through without going to probate is put into that irrevocable trust.
revocable
Yeah, I'm
while
sorry,
while you're
revocable.
alive.
Yeah,
And once
right.
you pass away, then it's irrevocable.
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
but yeah, that's correct. Right. And people don't realize they might have gone through half of their list, or I have these 5 bank accounts and these 2 CDs. I got 3 of the bank accounts and 1 of the CDs in the revocable trust. Well, whoops. If you leave anything out, it's going to go through probate. Another part of our estate planning basically package is we provide a lot of the documentation for the actual transfer of the assets into the revocable trust, including a bill of sale for your tangible property. Many people don't realize, gee, is my sofa going to have to go through probate? And yeah, you need a bill of sale transferring that into your revocable trust, all of your tangible property, so that the sofa avoids probate as well. So those are just little tips and tricks and hints. And one of the things, Chip, that we do in our office is we do a free review of everybody's new clients' estate plans, so basically every week I probably have 5 or 6 new people come in, me personally, and our partners do 5 or 6 a week of new people where we look at their old documents, we review them, and we just determine what should be done to make them better. And every now and then they're perfect and there's nothing more that needs to be done. But from doing these constant reviews, we have a list of about 5 major defects that we see all the time that are just, everybody has them, even if you've done an estate plan. And the number 1 major defect, they have a revocable trust, but they didn't fund it. Yeah. That is number 1. Yeah. Probably number 2 is they don't even have a revocable trust. And I'll have a client come in and they'll put a will down on the table and they say, oh, read this, Rebecca. I did my last will and testament. I'm going to avoid probate. And I have the difficult job of trying to explain to the client that the will means probate. Will equals probate. A will is a direction to the probate judge, what needs to be done. Right. So you need a revocable trust with what's called a pour over last will and testament.
Yeah, and I kind of brought up another term, which is irrevocable trust, which we'll probably talk about that in another video, but because it's rather more complicated. But basically, and that's why I probably mispronounced the word revocable instead of revocable, is because you can revoke it, you can change it, versus an irrevocable means that it's pretty much set in stone and you no longer have control of your assets. And it's not so easy to get that changed. But like I said, that's a topic for another time, revocable versus irrevocable trust. But in this case, revocable serves so many more needs of so many more families, because we're not talking about large, huge corporations with, lots and lots of assets, but more families. And so that's why this video is extremely important to me and to Rebecca, because we can help just everyday families save money for the family.
Right. And, I see the revocable trust it's a little bit like if you're baking a cake. So for all of those bakers out there that love those shows, like the Great British Baking Show, like I do, the Rev Trust is the foundation. It's the sponge. It's the cake itself. But then you also need the icing and the sprinkles and the decorations and all of that. That's where the irrevocable trust is really part of the decorations and sprinkles. But the very foundation, every estate, if you have $10,000 or if you have $100 million, you still need a revocable trust as a foundation.
Right. Can you talk about Homestead and how that protects assets from probate?
Well, Homestead can protect assets from probate. However, under our Florida Constitution, there's homestead descent and distribution. So the homestead itself descends automatically without having to have deeded it or transferred it or done a transfer, life estate transfer on death. However, Chip, you're in real estate, so you deal with this all the time. What we find is your mom and dad passed away and you go to sell their home, and you think it passed to you as the sole child automatically, but you can't get title insurance as a practical matter. You actually have to open up an estate and do a PR deed and do all, go through all of this rigmarole. So one of the questions that I get constantly is, oh, my lawyer told me I don't have to put my homestead in my revocable trust. Yeah, I love that face you just made. Yeah. Because the interesting aspect of that is statutorily, that attorney is correct. You don't have to put your homestead should statutorily pass automatically by operation of law. However, especially in our county, when the seller has to pay for the title insurance, you really need to put your homestead in your revocable trust to help with chain of title and for sale down the road, to clear up the title issues for the title insurance for the sale down the road, to help poor Chip out here when he goes to list and sell your home. So that's something that I see a lot of people kind of getting tripped up on. And you know, homestead is such a fun thing. It's always the question on one of the major essay questions on the Florida bar exam, by the way, and it trips up lots of new young lawyers all the time. But there's really three main types of homestead. There's homestead for Florida Constitution descent and distribution purposes. There's Florida creditor homestead protection, which of course everybody knows. Really people that, I don't know, build casinos in other states and then go bankrupt. They move to Florida and they buy huge oceanfront properties because it's all protected because it's their homestead. Right. It's a great creditor haven. So it's a homestead for creditor protection purposes. And then the third is homestead for real estate tax purposes, which lots of your viewers, I'm sure, have homesteaded their property, which means that our taxing district can't up the amount of real estate taxes they're going to charge based on the fair market value more than 3% per year. So there's cap on it because you've homesteaded your property through real estate. And I'll be honest, clients confuse those three concepts constantly. Homestead for creditor protection, homestead for real estate taxes, or homestead for constitutional descent and distribution. So you kind of have to chunk those up in three different positions in your mind.
Okay. Yeah, I know that we had talked before about how some firms, some bigger firms may want to actually, you know, obviously they make money off of fees and you know, so some of them like to litigate because obviously they're going to make more money. So, you know, I obviously don't, I want to be helpful to my viewers. So, you know, and anybody, you know, thinking about this, I want to protect them from getting into a situation where they need to litigate. So
right.
What are your thoughts on, you know, how firms work like that?
Yeah, shockingly, there's a number of things you can do. If you're somebody that's listening to this video and you've got the black sheep in the family, the one person that sues or the one person that's always trying to find the angle, or you've got that one kid that you're worried about, or a child that has drug and alcohol dependency, or a child that has mental illness, or you have a special needs child, you know, or somebody that is potentially litigious, that son that married that horrible woman that you could never stand, you know, everybody's got one. She's so evil, or he's so evil, that son-in-law is so awful. And he'll sue on the estate when I die. But there are things that you can do to protect your estate plan from lawsuit. Very few firms, very few large firms particularly do that because it doesn't behoove them to draft in such a way that wards off litigation. You know, as everybody knows, who's the person that wins when there's litigation?
The attorneys.
The attorneys, right. Yeah. It's certainly not the people defending the will. It's certainly not the people challenging the will. Anybody in the family, they're all the losers on that. The winner is the attorney. So if your law firm that you're going to do estate planning has a litigation branch, kind of be a little bit wary about it, especially maybe not so much if you have the Beaver Cleaver family. If you have the family where everybody's amazing and lovely, and I don't meet very many of those, but I think they do exist somewhere.
They do.
But if you have somebody in the family that you're worried about, you need to be concerned when you're selecting your estate planning attorney. Oh, you know, that brings up, Chip, another quick thing. how would you select an estate planning attorney? Do you have any idea?
Oh, that's why I'm doing this video, to help bring you to mind, to a lot of
Of course,
viewers.
I'd love for anybody watching this to come and get a free consultation with us. But if you don't like us, that's fine too. If there's somebody else, but if you got a pen and a paper, there's a couple of things you need to look for in your estate planning attorney. Number
Excellent.
one, you want somebody that is Florida Bar board certified in wills, trusts, and estates. What does that mean? That means that is 90% of what they do all day long. So I'm not doing divorce work. I'm not doing personal injury or ambulance chasing. I wouldn't touch a criminal case with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, I'm focused 100% on tax law, wealth transfer law, estate planning, probate and trust administration, wealth transfer, tax planning. We're also CPAs. So
One of the things that I constantly recommend when I suggest to select an attorney is to pick an attorney who's knowledgeable and with lots of experience, but also kind. Somebody that's going to be empathetic, because sometimes people can be task driven, especially attorneys, and they've got a task to do. But this is a very difficult time for the loved ones that are going through a loss, and they're going through grief. And so sometimes they need a little bit more of kindness, to be understanding of where they're at in their lives, and to help them, because quite honestly, they've got so much mental stress going on that this, process is just one more thing. So, that's one of the things that struck me about you, is that, you're definitely people oriented and service oriented. And, to me, that's equally important.
Well, Chip, you even making that statement and bringing that kind of to the forefront makes me understand why you do so much probate work. Because you have to have an understanding of that. It's a super difficult time in a person's life. They've just lost a loved one. Sometimes it's accidental. I mean, during this pandemic, it's like a car accident to most families at this point. It's truly, truly horrible, tragic event. So they're dealing with that, as well as then all of the logistics of the estate matters, the selling the real estate, clearing out the real estate. It's a very, very difficult emotional time. And quite frankly, all of the problems of the family usually get dredged up at this point in time too.
Yeah, any family history, this is the
Right.
time that it has a tendency to bubble to the surface.
Which kind of loops us back to our litigation talk that you just that you just mentioned, which is another reason why it's important to do the planning in advance to keep that from happening.
Exactly. And you had mentioned the pandemic, with COVID going on. And when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned about healthcare. And so if you would share that with the viewers about how they can protect, the family, for an unforeseen thing.
Yeah, just as a public service announcement, basically, during this pandemic, almost on a daily basis now, I'm getting panicked calls from family members who have a loved one in the hospital with COVID, who never expected it because he's only 48 years old, or she's only 51, or I just got a young 20-something-year-old that just passed from it. Just a terrible, terrible stuff. And the 27-year-old, parents couldn't talk to the doctors because they hadn't done a healthcare surrogate with HIPAA release. And the child, he was at college, goes to the clinic, he's so sick and having heart failure, goes in, there was no HIPAA release healthcare surrogate. He hadn't signed for his mom and dad to be able to talk to any doctors. When you're 28 years old, who thinks that anything is ever going to happen? So when you're 18 years old or older, even if you don't have a penny to your name, you still need and you live in Florida, you need a Florida healthcare surrogate and a living will, and hopefully a durable power of attorney as well. So I call those housekeeping documents that I have clients bring their children in on their 18th birthday to get them signed for mom and dad so that they're covered. Good. And when they go off to Gainesville or Florida State or Central or wherever they go, if they're in a car accident, God forbid, or something, they have the flu and they're hospitalized, mom and dad can talk to the doctors and get them the best medical care. So please, it's not just for young kids, it's for 18-year-olds and 98-year-olds all the way through. So everybody needs to make certain those documents are updated. Please, please.
Yeah, and I can tell you at my age of 57, unfortunately, I've known too many families that lost, a child after 18, and they've had to go through that. And it's just one more, problem to go through. I mean, it's already, bad enough. I had a friend of mine years ago, he passed on, but he lost a son, and his exact words were, we're wired to, we know we're going to lose our parents, and we may lose a sibling, but we're not wired to be able to lose a child. It's just not in us. And so, if you don't have a document like this and have have things prepared, you're already going through the most horrific thing you could probably go through in your life. And now you've got this, it seems like a stupid little problem, but it's a problem, and it's totally avoidable. So, highly encouraged to follow Rebecca's recommendations and get that.
I have 3 of my own kids, and on their 18th birthday, I brought them in. The 2 older ones, they signed. And then my youngest one, before he turned 18, came down with a very, very bad blood disorder that needed chemotherapy and all that. We flew him to Milwaukee. We were in the Ronald McDonald House for 8 months. And on his 18th, but he had gone into partial remission. On his 18th birthday, I said, look, before you go to college, if you can go, you need to sign these. And he looked at me, he goes, well, you're just doing this, Mom, because I've been sick. I said, no. And then I could show him his older brothers and older sisters. And he goes, oh, okay, good. And at that point in time, I thought, thank goodness I had the other kids do this, so he wasn't singled out, So, just kind of keep up with it and make certain that they're updated for your family, for yourself, for your kids.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to add to the video? I'm going to put Rebecca's, Ms. Stone's information down in the video description, so anybody can contact her. And might you have anything else you want to add, or?
No, I please, if you've got questions about your own personal matters, just call us at the at Doan and Doan, PA. We're in Palm Beach Gardens, and I'm sure Chip will post the number if you need it.
Yep. So. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, and I'm very, very grateful. I've been excited about this video for quite a long time, and since our first conversation. Because I knew you were the perfect one for this, and you have a heart of service and helping people, and that's what this is all about, is to help people. So
I appreciate it, and I'm glad that I know I've got someone to turn to also when we've got an estate matter and a homestead and one of those tricky pieces of real estate that nobody else in town really seems to know what to do with. So I'm glad that at least you do. So yeah. That's good.
And quite honestly, if I don't know, I'll get it done. So. Sometimes when you're 57, you realize there's still things you don't know, and you can always learn more. And but the idea is that I like the expression, get her done, so whatever needs to be done, I'm going to get it done.
Good for you. Yay. So all right. Well, I appreciate this. This has been fun. I hope somebody's gotten something from it. I hope.
Yeah. To me, if it gets one person, and even if it's just for the healthcare forms for their children, I know several people whose kids are in college or just slightly out, and even if it's just that, that's something that's gained from this video. But obviously protecting family assets from going through probate and from litigation. I have another video that was on why heirs have a tendency to fight, and why not to fight, and how the money doesn't get any bigger. It just goes in, different directions when you fight over it. So
mostly to the lawyers.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'll share one thing with you. It's in the video. I had a wise attorney years ago. He's since retired, and he said, when you've got a situation like a divorce or an inheritance, you got a pile of money on a table, and the pile doesn't get any bigger. But as the bickering goes on, the pile gets smaller and smaller because that money is siphoning off to the attorneys who are doing all the fighting. So it's always a good idea to try to get along and keep that pile as intact as possible, and keep it in the family. So
That's for sure. That's for sure. Even if it's to the black sheep, it's still better.
my thoughts exactly. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate this.
All right. Take care.
All
Have
right,
a good
you
one.
too.
Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.